Let me tell you something that can reshape your future, not through hype, but through science-backed truth. You want to change your life. Start with your brain. Because when you learn how it works, you stop living by chance and start living by choice. Every single morning, your brain wakes up with one question. What's the plan? If you don't give it structure, it will default to chaos, scrolling, overthinking, reactivity. But if you give it clarity, even a simple list, it responds. It sharpens, it wakes up to work. You don't need motivation, you need momentum. And momentum is built when you understand that motivation is just dopamine in motion. It's not about feeling good, it's about chasing something meaningful. Set a goal, no matter how small. Break it down and chase it daily. Celebrate the micro wins. Not for ego, but because your brain rewires itself through repetition of effort. Every time you push forward, even just a little, your brain builds new connections. You're not stuck. You're simply not signaling growth often enough. Want to gain control? Start with your breath. Yes, your breath. A deep inhale through the nose, a slow exhale through the mouth. It changes your state, your focus, your heart rate, your response to stress. Combine that with visual anchoring. Look far ahead, even literally. It tells your brain, I'm in control. You think change comes from hustle alone? Think again. The foundation of your energy, your clarity, your emotional resilience is sleep. Not just hours, but quality. Set a when-down ritual. Dim the lights, shut down screens. Respect your biology, and your brain will reward you with performance. And here's what most people forget. Your mind follows your body, your posture affects your mood. Movement boosts cognition. Even brief, cold exposure increases focus and dopamine. These are not hacks. These are primal tools, free, immediate, powerful. So watch this every day, not just to feel inspired, but to be reminded of the truth. You are not a slave to emotion. You are not wired for mediocrity. You are not stuck. You are still adapting. Make a plan. Take action. Sleep well. Move often. Breathe with purpose. And most importantly, pursue meaning daily. Because your brain listens to what you do, not what you say. Watch this every day and change your life forever. The brain thrives on structure, not chaos. It is biologically designed to recognize patterns, anticipate outcomes, and create predictable routines to conserve energy and enhance decision-making. At its core, the brain is not just a thinking machine, it is an efficiency machine. It seeks to reduce the amount of cognitive effort needed to perform daily tasks. And how does it do this? Through structure. When your environment, actions, and thoughts follow a predictable rhythm, your brain becomes more efficient, more focused, and more prepared for progress. Most people associate structure with rigidity, but in reality, structure is freedom. When your day has intentional checkpoints, a time to wake, a place to work, a plan to follow, your brain reduces decision fatigue. This is critical because every choice you make, no matter how small, draws from a finite mental reservoir. Without structure, your brain is forced to negotiate with itself all day long. Should I do this now or later? Should I check my phone? Should I respond to this notification? This constant inner negotiation burns precious mental energy and often leads to procrastination, distraction, and anxiety. Think of a structured routine like a mental operating system. Once installed, it runs in the background, automating essential habits and freeing up your cognitive bandwidth for higher level thinking. This is why many of the most successful individuals in science, business, and sports swear by rituals. Morning routines, consistent workout times, scheduled planning blocks. These routines aren't signs of obsession, they are strategies to minimize chaos and maximize creativity. When your brain knows what's coming next, it stops reacting and starts performing. This structure is especially important in the first and last hours of your day. What you do in the morning primes your brain for focus and productivity. The first 30 minutes after waking up are critical for setting your mental tone. If you begin your day with structure, hydrating, moving, journaling, planning, you create a neurological momentum that carries into everything else. On the other hand, if you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, you've already surrendered control. You've handed your brain over to the randomness of social media, emails, and distractions. A surefire way to start the day in chaos. At night, the same principle applies. Your brain craves a pattern to wind down. Lights dimming, screens off, quiet reflection, maybe light stretching or reading. These rituals send signals to your nervous system it's time to rest. Without this pattern, your sleep becomes fragmented. Poor sleep leads to poor decision-making, weakened willpower, and increased emotional reactivity the next day. It's a vicious cycle. Structure protects you from that spiral. And it's not just about time-based routines. Mental structure is just as vital. This includes knowing your why, having a clear vision, defined goals, and daily priorities. When you wake up and already know what matters most today, your mind is calm, directed, and ready. Without that clarity, your day becomes a storm of competing distractions. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters on purpose. But here's the powerful truth: structure is not something you're born with, it's something you build. Brick by brick, choice by choice. You don't have to start big. Start with one small anchor habit: waking up at the same time every day or planning your day on paper each morning. These small patterns become habits. Habits become identity, and identity becomes destiny. Over time, your brain begins to rely on these systems. Neural pathways strengthen. What once required effort becomes automatic. This is neuroplasticity in action. Your brain reshaping itself in response to the life you're choosing to build. It adapts to the structure you set. The same way muscles grow under resistance, your mental discipline grows under structured routines. People often say, "I just don't feel motivated." But that's the wrong starting point. Motivation is a byproduct. It comes after action, not before. When you wake up and follow your routine, even when you don't feel like it, you're training your brain to value discipline over emotion. And slowly, that becomes who you are. Structure creates stability, and stability creates self-trust. The more you trust yourself to follow through, the more confidence you build. The more confidence you build, the more risks you're willing to take. And that's how Levs change, not in bursts of motivation, but in the quiet commitment to repeat what works. The modern world doesn't reward structure. It rewards stimulation. Constant notifications, short-term gratification, and novelty, these are the enemies of focus. If your day is governed by what feels urgent rather than what is important, you will always feel busy and never feel fulfilled. Structure is your defense against this. It's how you reclaim your attention, your intention, and your progress. There will be days when the structure feels boring, repetitive, even pointless. But this is when the transformation is happening. It's in the consistency that change becomes permanent. Your nervous system begins to regulate, your anxiety lessens, your focus sharpens, your confidence grows. Chaos is seductive, but structure is sustainable. And when your life has a foundation built on structure, intentional morning routines, focused work blocks, clear boundaries, restful nights, you no longer rely on willpower to get through the day. You rely on systems that you built. Systems that serve your purpose, not your impulse. So if you want to change your life, don't start with a massive goal. Start with structure. Make your mornings sacred. Make your time intentional. Make your habits automatic. And trust that your brain, this incredible organ designed to adapt, to grow, to rewire, will follow your lead. Your success is not determined by talent or luck. It's determined by how you train your brain to show up every day on time, with purpose, because the brain thrives on structure, and so will your future. Motivation is a chemical, not a mystery. It is not some magical force that visits the lucky or the gifted. It is a biological process driven by the release and regulation of specific neurotransmitters in your brain, especially dopamine. When you truly understand this, everything changes. You stop waiting for motivation to strike, and you start creating it through deliberate action and awareness of your brain's natural systems. Dopamine is not the reward. It is the fuel for pursuit. It rises when you anticipate success, when you imagine achieving something meaningful. It surges not at the finish line, but at the starting line, when you decide to take action towards something you value. The problem is that most people misunderstand motivation. They think it's a feeling. They wait until they feel energized, excited, or confident. But the truth is, motivation is often not present when you begin, and that's okay, because it doesn't have to be. Your brain is designed to reward effort. When you engage in a goal-directed behavior, like waking up early, going for a run, or tackling a difficult task, even if it feels hard at first, your dopamine levels begin to rise. That internal chemical response tells your body, yes, this is worth doing. Keep going. In this way, motivation is not a prerequisite for action. Action is the spark for motivation. Understanding this gives you the upper hand. You realize that you don't need to feel ready, inspired, or fearless. You just need to begin. Take one step, one rep, one task. Because the moment you shift from thought to movement, you start activating the brain's motivational circuitry. And that circuit is wired to reinforce pursuit, not passivity. Waiting around, hoping to feel motivated is like standing in front of a fireplace and asking for warmth before adding wood. That's not how it works. You give the brain something to chase, and it gives you the chemical drive to keep chasing. Now, here's where it gets powerful. You can actually train your dopamine system. You can teach your brain to associate effort with satisfaction. This is a process called reward prediction. When your brain starts to see struggle as meaningful, when it learns that pushing through discomfort leads to accomplishment, it begins to release dopamine earlier in the process, not just at the end. That's why people who exercise regularly start to crave it. It's not because every workout feels amazing, but because their brain now expects a reward from the effort itself. But be warned, modern life hijacks this system. Social media, junk food, gaming, all of these flood your brain with dopamine without requiring effort. They create false signals of achievement. And over time, your brain begins to favor low effort, high reward behaviors, the exact opposite of what builds success and resilience. The result, you feel distracted, unmotivated, and even empty. Because deep down, your brain knows it's being tricked. It's craving the real thing, progress, purpose, growth, but settling for the cheap imitation. This leads to what scientists call dopamine burnout, where nothing feels exciting anymore, and even the things you once loved seem dull. The cure is to reset your reward system, to make effort your new addiction. This doesn't require massive change overnight. It begins with choosing high-effort rewards. Instead of mindlessly scrolling your phone, go for a walk. Instead of binge watching a show, read a chapter of a book that challenges you. Instead of giving in to distractions, sit with your task for just 5 more minutes. Every time you resist an easy hit of dopamine and choose meaningful effort, instead, you're reshaping your brain. You're increasing your sensitivity to earned rewards, which is the foundation of lasting motivation. Another important aspect of this process is delayed gratification. The ability to push through discomfort and wait for a greater reward is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success. When you delay gratification, you're telling your brain, this is worth more than a quick fix. And your brain listens. It strengthens the neural pathways responsible for willpower, patience, and long-term thinking. This is why setting goals and sticking to them matters. Not because of the outcome, but because of what the pursuit does to your brain. You can amplify this even further by using visualization. Imagine your goal. Picture the benefits of achieving it. See yourself overcoming obstacles. This mental rehearsal triggers the dopamine system in the same way that physical action does. It gives your brain a preview of success, which increases your desire to chase it. But it only works if you follow through with action. Visualization without execution leads to frustration, not motivation. There's also a lesser-known method to train your motivation, embracing voluntary discomfort. This means choosing challenges. Workouts, cold exposure, fasting, hard conversations, not because they're enjoyable, but because they build mental resilience. When you voluntarily engage in discomfort, your brain releases dopamine not from pleasure, but from control. You're showing your nervous system that pain is not always danger, that challenge is not always suffering. This rewires your brain to stop fearing effort and start valuing it. The beautiful truth is that your brain is malleable. It's not fixed. It responds to your environment, your actions, and your focus. If you feed it shallow, easy stimulation, it becomes lazy. If you feed it deep, meaningful effort, it becomes powerful. You are not motivated. You're simply untrained in how motivation really works. This is the science of change. Understand the biology. Work with your brain, not against it. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop chasing excitement. Choose a goal. Take action. Stay consistent. Let your dopamine system catch up. And when it does, you'll find that motivation is not something you chase. It's something you create through daily effort. Your brain is built to pursue. It's designed to work for you. But you have to lead it. Start now. Take one small step today. Train your brain to crave growth. And when you do, motivation will no longer be a mystery. It will become your natural state. Small wins rewire the brain for success. This is not just a motivational phrase. It is a neurological fact rooted in the science of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt based on experience. Every time you accomplish a task, no matter how minor it may seem, your brain registers it as progress. And with each act of progress, your neural circuits shift. Pathways associated with focus, confidence, and motivation strengthen. In simple terms, the brain learns to succeed by experiencing success. Not monumental, once-in-a-lifetime success, but daily, repeated, deliberate wins that gradually shape a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. The problem most people face is that they only celebrate big victories. They think change is supposed to be dramatic, so they wait for the big break, the perfect day, or the right moment. In doing so, they overlook the power of the small steps, the ones that seem insignificant, yet hold the key to long-term transformation. When you finish your workout even when you didn't feel like starting, when you complete a task you were avoiding, when you choose discipline over comfort, these are small wins. And these wins are the building blocks of personal evolution. They are proof to your brain that you are capable, that effort matters, and that progress is happening, even if it's not instantly visible. Neuroscience shows us that habits are not formed by occasional intense efforts, but through consistent repetition. Each time you act in alignment with your goals, you create a tiny feedback loop. Action leads to a sense of accomplishment, which leads to a dopamine release, which reinforces the behavior. The more you repeat this cycle, the stronger those neural connections become. Eventually, what was once difficult becomes automatic. You no longer need willpower for every action because your brain has internalized the behavior. This is how discipline becomes identity, but this process begins with small wins. Waiting for motivation or trying to force massive change is often overwhelming. It triggers fear and resistance. That's why starting small is not weakness, it's strategy. When you make your goals so simple that they're almost impossible to fail, like reading 1 page a day, doing 1 push-up, or writing for just 2 minutes, you create a win. That win gives you psychological momentum, and that momentum pushes you to do more. 1 page becomes 5. 1 push-up becomes 10. The hardest part is getting started. Once you begin, the brain's reward system activates and action becomes easier. There's also an emotional side to small wins. They generate hope. They create evidence. If you've ever doubted yourself, felt stuck, or believed that change isn't possible, a single small win can change your perspective. It shows you that progress is within reach, that you don't need to be perfect, just consistent. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you're telling your subconscious mind, I can trust myself. That trust becomes the foundation of self-confidence. And confidence doesn't come from success itself. It comes from the belief that you can succeed. Small wins build that belief 1 brick at a time. And the beauty of this process is that it's scalable. Once your brain learns how to build habits through small victories, you can apply it anywhere: health, learning, relationships, business. The principle is the same: start small, repeat often, reward the process. This structure wires the brain for growth. And over time, it transforms not only your behavior, but your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to change. You become someone who has changed and continues to grow. The mistake many people make is chasing massive results without creating a solid foundation. It's like trying to lift a heavy weight without first learning the form. You end up exhausted, injured, or discouraged. The same thing happens mentally when you push too hard without building the neurological strength to support it. That's why focusing on small wins is not lowering your standards. It's preparing your brain for bigger challenges. It's how you scale sustainably without burning out. There's also something powerful about visibility. When you track your wins, when you write them down, mark them off, or reflect on them, they become more real. This is not about ego or perfectionism, it's about reinforcing progress. The brain thrives on feedback. When you visually recognize your effort, you amplify the reward signal. This helps you stay engaged, especially when motivation fades. Whether it's a journal, a checklist, or a simple note on your phone, tracking small wins keeps you emotionally connected to the process. Even setbacks are easier to recover from when you have a foundation of small wins. Why? Because you've built up self-evidence. You've proven to yourself that progress is possible. So when you fall off track, and you won't spiral into doubt. You'll get back up, knowing that 1 small step forward is all it takes to regain momentum. This is resilience in action. And resilience, like motivation, is not something you're born with. It's built through experience, specifically through repeated small efforts that prove you're stronger than your excuses. It's important to recognize that your brain doesn't care how small the win is. What matters is the consistency and intention behind it. Whether it's waking up 5 minutes earlier, choosing water instead of soda, or practicing gratitude for 1 moment, each of these sends a signal, I am changing. And those signals, accumulated over days and weeks, begin to override old patterns. Your brain is always adapting. You are never stuck. You are simply signaling the same story too often. Small wins are how you begin telling a new story, one of growth, power, and purpose. So if you feel overwhelmed, unmotivated, or unsure where to begin, don't look for the giant leap. Look for the first step. The one thing you can do today to get 1% better. Do it with intention. Do it consistently. Celebrate it, track it, and trust the process, because small wins, repeated daily, create unstoppable momentum. And in the brain, momentum is everything. You don't have to do everything today.
Yeah.
Just have to do something meaningful and repeat it tomorrow. That's how you rewire your brain. That's how you change your behavior. And that's how you ultimately change your life, 1 small, powerful win at a time. Sleep is not a luxury, it is a biological necessity. It is the foundation upon which your mental performance, emotional stability, physical health, and long-term resilience are built. Modern life often glorifies hustle and late nights, encouraging people to sacrifice sleep for productivity. But this mindset is not only misguided, it is scientifically dangerous. The research is undeniable. When you compromise your sleep, you compromise your brain's ability to function, learn, remember, and adapt. Your cognitive processes don't operate optimally on willpower and caffeine. They depend on cycles of deep, restorative rest. Without it, even your best efforts become inefficient. You might feel like you're doing more, but your brain is working with less. During sleep, your brain performs critical functions that can't happen when you're awake. It consolidates memories, cleanses waste products, repairs neural connections, and rebalances chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. These aren't just technical details. They directly affect how you feel and perform. A well-rested brain is better at solving problems, regulating emotions, sustaining attention, and managing stress. In contrast, sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired, it alters your perception of reality. It impairs judgment, weakens self-control, increases anxiety, and amplifies negative thinking. You start reacting instead of responding, your motivation drops, your creativity suffers. And the worst part is, you might not even realize how much your performance is declining because sleep-deprived brains are notoriously poor at self-assessment. Sleep is also one of the most powerful tools for enhancing neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and learn. Whether you're trying to build a new habit, master a skill, or improve focus, sleep is what locks in those gains. Think of learning like writing with ink. The act of practice lays it down, but sleep is what makes it permanent. This is especially true for deep sleep, which plays a key role in storing long-term memories and fine-tuning motor skills. And rapid eye movement, REM sleep, the stage where dreams occur, helps the brain integrate complex emotions and solve abstract problems. That's why people often say, "Let me sleep on it," because sometimes the answers truly do come after a night of rest. And let's not forget the relationship between sleep and motivation. Your motivation is tightly linked to your dopamine system, and that system is highly sensitive to sleep. Even one night of poor sleep reduces dopamine receptor availability, which can make everything feel harder the next day. Tasks that normally seem manageable feel overwhelming. Goals lose their appeal. Discipline weakens. You become more susceptible to procrastination and distraction, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is biologically out of balance. Sleep is not optional if you want sustainable motivation. It's the reset button for your reward system. The circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock, governs when you feel awake and when you feel sleepy. Disrupting it, by staying up late or sleeping at inconsistent times, throws off the release of hormones like melatonin and cortisol. This doesn't just affect your ability to fall asleep, it impacts your entire biological rhythm, digestion, metabolism, immune function, and mental clarity. Waking up and going to bed at the same time each day is not just a lifestyle choice, it's one of the most effective ways to keep your brain and body aligned. Light exposure in the morning, particularly natural sunlight, helps regulate this rhythm. It tells your brain it's time to be alert and sets the timer for melatonin release later that evening. But it's not only about quantity. Quality matters too. You could be in bed for 8 hours and still get poor sleep if your environment or habits are misaligned. Screens before bed, caffeine late in the day, alcohol late meals, and inconsistent routines all sabotage your sleep quality. The goal is to create conditions that signal safety and restfulness. A cool, dark, quiet room. A wind-down routine that reduces stimulation. Consistent sleep and wake times. All these elements train your brain to sleep deeply and efficiently. Think of this like building a nightly ritual that primes your brain for repair and reset. Just as important as a pre-workout warm-up is for the body. There's also a massive connection between sleep and emotional resilience. When you're well rested, you're better at regulating your emotions. The amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for processing fear and stress, becomes less reactive. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational decision-making, functions more efficiently. This means you're more likely to respond with calm, clarity, and confidence even in difficult situations. On the flip side, when you're sleep deprived, your emotional responses become exaggerated. You feel more easily overwhelmed, irritable, anxious, and discouraged. This creates a cycle where poor sleep leads to emotional instability, which leads to more stress, which disrupts sleep again. Athletes have long understood the power of sleep. Many of the world's top performers in sports and business prioritize sleep like a secret weapon because they know that recovery is not rest, it's part of the process. Muscle repair, hormone balance, reaction time, decision-making, all of these are tied to sleep. But the lesson isn't just for elite performers. Everyone, whether a student, entrepreneur, parent, or artist, benefits from protecting and optimizing sleep. It's the most accessible performance-enhancing tool you have. It costs nothing and its benefits are enormous. If you want to build a better life, start by protecting your nights. Set a bedtime like you would an important meeting. Respect it. Create an evening routine that signals it's time to let go. Dim the lights, turn off the noise, let your mind settle. No amount of caffeine, productivity hacks, or motivation videos can replace what deep, restorative sleep does for your brain. You don't need to earn sleep. You need to honor it, because the truth is you will never outperform your recovery. There's power in knowing that sleep is not weakness. It's not time wasted. It's time invested. Every great transformation, mental, physical, emotional, begins with recovery. So if you're serious about change, about becoming your strongest self, about living with clarity, energy, and purpose, then make sleep non-negotiable. Not sometimes, every night. Let your brain heal. Let your body reset. Let your mind recharge. Because when you wake up after a night of quality sleep, you're not just rested. You're recharged at a cellular level. Your motivation sharpens. Your vision clears. Your actions align. And you begin the day not chasing energy, but leading it. Sleep is not the end of productivity. It's where it begins. Treat it that way, and your life will change from the inside out. Your environment is not just the physical space around you. It's a powerful force that shapes your thoughts, your behaviors, and ultimately your destiny. Every sound you hear, every image you see, every piece of information you consume, every person you interact with, all of it has a direct and measurable impact on your brain. Most people underestimate how deeply influenced they are by what surrounds them. But neuroscience makes it clear the brain is a reflection of its inputs. And if those inputs are chaotic, negative, or uninspiring, your thinking patterns will begin to mirror that. Conversely, if you intentionally curate an environment that aligns with your goals, your brain will begin to change in response, making motivation, focus, and discipline more natural and automatic. Consider how much your environment affects your attention. Your brain has limited bandwidth. It can only focus on a certain number of things at once. When you fill your space with clutter, noise, or distractions, your brain must constantly switch tasks, filter information, and resist impulses. This drains your mental energy and leads to cognitive fatigue. But when you simplify your environment, when you remove what is unnecessary and surround yourself with cues that promote clarity and purpose, your brain can focus more deeply, process more efficiently, and sustain motivation for longer periods. Something as simple as a clean desk, a silent room, or a well-lit space can significantly elevate your ability to think and create. The people you allow into your environment play an even bigger role. Human beings are social creatures, and your brain is wired for connection. Through a process called emotional contagion, you absorb the emotions, beliefs, and energy of those around you, often unconsciously. If you spend time with people who are negative, complacent, or constantly distracted, those patterns begin to shape your own behavior. On the other hand, if you're surrounded by people who strive for excellence, who value discipline, growth, and vision, their mindset starts to rub off on you. You become more like them just by being in their presence. It's not about judgment, it's about resonance. Your nervous system adapts to the energy it's immersed in. That's why your circle matters. It's not just social, it's neurological. But it's not only about who or what is around you. It's about how intentionally you design your environment to serve your higher goals. You don't have to wait for the perfect conditions, you can create them. Start by identifying what triggers distraction or procrastination. Is it your phone? Turn off notifications. Is it background noise? Use noise-canceling headphones. Is it toxic social media? Unfollow or mute accounts that don't inspire growth. Replace these triggers with cues that reinforce the identity you want to build. Leave your workout clothes where you'll see them. Keep a journal on your desk. Place a vision board where you look every morning. These small changes send a message to your brain. This space is for growth, not escape. Lighting, color, temperature, and even scent can affect brain chemistry. Studies show that exposure to natural light enhances mood and alertness. Certain colors can boost creativity or calm anxiety. A cool room improves focus. A pleasant scent can elevate memory recall. These details may seem small, but they compound over time. When you create an environment that nourishes your nervous system instead of stressing it, your body stays in a state of readiness rather than reactivity. You reduce the cognitive load of constantly resisting distractions, which means more of your energy is available for focused work and meaningful effort. The digital environment matters just as much. Every app you open, every video you watch, every word you read, all of it trains your brain. Doom scrolling, clickbait, negativity, these shape your thought loops. And once those loops are repeated, they become your default state. That's how people slowly lose their drive and curiosity, not because they're lazy, but because their inputs are misaligned with their goals. So take control of your digital space. Unsubscribe from noise. Follow sources that educate, uplift, and challenge you. Structure your digital tools in a way that makes your desired behavior easier. Use website blockers, focus timers, and clean interfaces. The goal is not to escape the world. It's to use technology consciously, not compulsively. Your brain is always listening, always learning. It does not wait for the perfect moment to change. It responds to what you consistently expose it to. So if you want to think more clearly, move more confidently, and act more purposefully, you must begin by reshaping the spaces in which your brain operates. Because if you are constantly battling your surroundings, you are wasting energy that could be used for creation and transformation. The strongest willpower in the world will struggle in a weak environment. But even a little willpower supported by a strong environment becomes almost effortless. Your environment can either work against you or for you. It can pull you back into old patterns, or it can push you forward into your next level. That's the choice, not a one-time decision, but a daily practice. Every day, you have the power to adjust your space, your inputs, your influences. Every day, you can move one step closer to an environment that supports the life you want to build. It doesn't require massive changes overnight. It requires awareness and consistency. One drawer cleaned, one app deleted, one conversation distanced, one new influence added. These changes might feel small, but they reshape the architecture of your behavior. Over time, they create a space where your best self can thrive. So ask yourself, what kind of environment are you building? One that energizes or drains? One that supports your vision or sabotages it? Look around. Be honest. Then act. Because the most powerful changes don't begin in your goals or even your habits. They begin in your environment. The brain adapts to what it sees most often. Create a space where greatness is the norm, not the exception. And watch how your thoughts, your discipline, your identity, everything begins to rise to match it. Success doesn't come from waiting for the perfect moment. It doesn't come from grand plans that never leave the page. Success is built on action, consistent, intentional action, taken even when you don't feel ready, even when motivation is low, even when the path ahead is unclear. The truth is, your brain is not wired to naturally push you into discomfort. It's wired for survival, for safety, for efficiency. That means it will always favor familiarity over progress, comfort over growth. But the most powerful thing you can do to override this is to move. Action itself rewires your brain. It reshapes your identity. Every time you act despite resistance, you prove to yourself that you are not controlled by fear, doubt, or laziness. You are in control. And that control compounds. Waiting for motivation is a trap. Motivation is fleeting, emotional, and unreliable. It comes and goes based on mood, weather, energy levels, and 1,000 other variables. But action, especially small, structured, daily action, generates its own momentum. This is not just motivational talk, it's grounded in neuroscience. When you take action, especially in the direction of a meaningful goal, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of reward and drive. This dopamine creates a feedback loop. Action creates motivation, which creates more action, and the cycle continues. The longer you stay in motion, the stronger your neural circuits become around discipline, clarity, and focus. This is how habits are formed, not through inspiration, but through repetition. Your brain builds pathways based on what you do repeatedly, not what you think about. So even if you don't feel like working out, if you do it anyway, you're teaching your brain, this is who I am now. Even if you're tired but choose to read instead of scroll, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who values learning. Each action becomes a vote for the future version of you. And the more you vote, the stronger that identity becomes, until it no longer feels like effort. It becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Too often, people overthink and underact. They wait to feel confident before they speak up. They wait to be ready before they start. But confidence doesn't precede action. It follows it. You build confidence through evidence. You become confident in your ability to lead by leading. You become confident in your ability to create by creating. You become confident in your ability to grow by showing up again and again, even when it's hard. The brain doesn't trust words, it trusts experience. And the only way to give it experience is to do the work. Start messy, start small. But start. Neuroscience also shows that the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and planning, is strengthened through action. The more you act, the better you become at choosing your behavior instead of reacting to impulses. This is crucial because in a world full of distractions, the ability to act intentionally is a superpower. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are not just winning a small battle. You are training your brain to favor focus. And over time, that training becomes automatic. One of the most important realizations is that resistance is normal. Everyone feels it. Resistance to waking up early. Resistance to doing the hard task. Resistance to changing habits. But resistance is not a signal to stop. It's a signal to begin. It means you're on the edge of something meaningful. And the only way to quiet resistance is through movement. Action silences the inner critic. It interrupts the loop of self-doubt. Because when you are in motion, your brain doesn't have time to feed fear. It is too busy solving problems, making progress, and building momentum. People who change their lives are not the ones who never feel fear or laziness. They're the ones who act anyway. They have learned to trust the process more than their feelings. Because feelings are temporary, but action builds something permanent. Discipline, results, pride. These are earned through repetition, not emotion. And once you understand this, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop hesitating. You start showing up because you realize that the person you want to become is built not in big breakthroughs, but in thousands of small, consistent steps. The beautiful thing about action is that it creates clarity. You don't have to know the entire path before you begin. Just take the first step. Then the next becomes visible. Learning is embedded in doing. Growth is found in trying, and failure. It's not the opposite of progress, it's part of it. Every mistake you make while in motion teaches you something. Every wrong turn builds your intuition. You refine your direction not by standing still and thinking, but by moving forward and adjusting. The best thinkers in the world don't just sit and analyze. They experiment, execute, and evolve. You don't need to feel motivated every day. You don't need to be perfect. You need a system, a rhythm, a commitment to show up whether you feel like it or not. This is how change happens. Not by pushing harder in short bursts, but by staying consistent over time. 5 minutes of action is better than hours of planning. 1 rep is better than 0. 1 uncomfortable conversation is better than a lifetime of silence. And the more you act, the easier it becomes. Because action is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it grows. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are not a slave to your feelings. You are the architect of your behavior. And through behavior, you reshape your brain, your habits, your results, and your identity. It doesn't take genius or luck, it takes motion. The courage to begin. The discipline to continue. The patience to keep showing up even when it's slow, even when it's hard, even when no one else is watching. Because you're not doing it for applause. You're doing it for transformation, for integrity, for becoming the kind of person who doesn't just dream but does. So the next time you find yourself stuck, waiting, doubting, act. Not impulsively, but deliberately. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. The perfect time is created by the one who begins. So take the first step. Let that step be the spark. And let the spark become a fire that burns through hesitation, fear, and doubt. Because once you move, you awaken the part of your brain designed for progress. And in that state, you are unstoppable. You don't need more motivation. You need more movement. Everything you want starts on the other side of action.